And you're live.
This is a continuation of the conference committee on the 2022 budget. We're lucky that Senator Sears figured out his technical difficulties because we certainly want him here this morning. Obviously, we're trying to get as many different pieces wrapped up as we possibly can. There's some work that we're going to have to wait until Stephanie comes back, because we've been talking about how we would move some ARPA for general fund around, and what that would look like if we made those changes. And so she's put together a good spreadsheet that helps walk us through what that would be. Also, we have some pieces of language that maybe we could just get off the table. I don't know, Catherine. I don't have the document on my screen, but I wanted to propose some language. You had information, you wanted information on fee increases, and there was concern, and we know from it being on transportation, there are thousands of fees. And so I don't know whether we have the ability to share that proposed language, but what we're really looking at is look at the major fees that are really generate a lot of revenues and that have not been updated, and to reflect inflation and what that difference would be if they had been raised. So it was a different way of saying these revenues have an impact. In some areas we know we're backfilling because of them, but we also appreciate the amount of workload associated with looking at all fees. So Catherine, I don't know, do you have that language available?
I'm sorry, I don't, were you talking about fees, not the ESSER thing?
No, we're not talking about the ESSER.
I don't have the fee thing. I don't know. And I don't know if Maria has it at all. I do not have it.
No, I don't know that it's been draft. I think I'm on to. I don't think we have it.
Okay, well,
I think we talked about setting a threshold.
Okay, let's hold on that.
We're talking about different things. Senator Kitchell is referring to the fee language that we proposed, looking at all of the different entities and asking for a report.
And there's a different proposal. We didn't write it up yet.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, it's written up. I guess Stephanie would be the one who's got the what we would like to offer as a counter proposal for that language that hopefully makes it really focused on where the money is and sort of what are the revenue impacts. So let's hold on that. Also, I don't know whether we have Catherine here, and we've had some discussion around the ESSER funding. Are you prepared to brief us on that, Catherine, about the language that we have talked about that recognizes the fact that there's a timing issue, plan has to be submitted. On the other hand, we have a constitutional obligation to appropriate money. And so it's a way of authorizing, appropriating money in areas that we have reviewed and would agree we wanted to move forward, but also a provision for review. So if you have that language, Catherine, and you want to present it to the committee, that maybe we could get that wrapped up.
Certainly. So I have a question for you. I have a version. Jen Curry had drafted it. I just put the word draft at the top because I made a few other changes. So do you want me to show my screen? Do you want me to email it to you with the understanding that I want we need to maybe fine tune a few pieces of it, but it's the basic concept is here. So would you prefer me to share it or email
I'd like you to share it because I only have the one screen.
Okay. So I will hang on.
I could move, I suppose.
I can do this. This is fine. And
Oh.
can you, is this big enough?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the concept that there's ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 pots of money, and this is addressing all three. And the purpose of this section is to address all those three, how it's related. So the first section, the ESSER 1 funds. So these are funds that have been spent because they had a deadline of, I believe, April. So this lays out how the funds were spent and then has an effective date, effective on April 1st, 2020. We think when we need to confirm that date, but we think that will cover their expenses, but we're going to confirm that date. So that would make that an appropriation for those funds. Going on to ESSER 2, these are the funds that must be obligated by January 5th, I believe it is, of this coming year. And so these funds are appropriated in fiscal year 2022 and to be carried forward. So they actually don't have to spend them all by January, but they need to be obligated. And they have these funds, the 4.5 million for the summer school and after programs, 634,000 for administrative and personnel costs. And then the final group of the ESSER 3 funds, which are appropriate. This would give them the authority to spend $1 million to address emergency state level needs and 1.4 for administrative and personnel costs. And these funds need to be obligated by March of 2022. 22, right? And then we also have some contingent appropriations where the Agency of Education is going to develop a plan for these ESSER funds pursuant to the rules, and they will submit the plan. So the Agency of Education has to create a plan and submit it to the feds. Under this provision, before the Secretary of Education submits it to the federal government, he has to submit it to the House and Senate Education Committees. And this is a plan that's due this summer. And then the other contingent appropriation, I'm sorry if I'm scrolling too fast, is there are three sets of money that the secretary would like, this is related to the ESSER 3 funds, and these would all be contingent also. So these would have to, you're going to appropriate these funds, but they wouldn't be allowed to expend it until it's approved by the Joint Fiscal Committee along with the chair and of the House and Senate Education Committees. There's $3 million for regional capacity grants to address student social, emotional, and mental health needs. $3 million for academic needs related to remote learning and supports, including address learning loss, supporting student engagement, and providing learning enrichment, and $1 million for educator workforce development. And to the extent that these are not spent by January 5th, with your approval, the Joint Fiscal Committee approval, then the next session would have the discussion and be appropriated then. And the final section is about the section 439. This is amending the source of funds that was appropriated earlier in 315 from ESSER. Was it ESSER 3 and we're moving it to ESSER 2? Is that we're moving it from one ESSER to the other ESSER. Now I have to remember which one it was.
Yeah, from ESSER 3 to ESSER 2 to use up the ESSER 2 money.
I'm sorry if I was too fast or didn't. I don't know if there are any questions on this.
I think I see Senator Sears has his hand up.
Yeah, could you explain the 1 million workforce development? Who's targeted?
This is where the Joint Fiscal Committee would hear from the secretary before he has the authority to spend it. So it's just putting it in that bucket. That was a bucket that he wanted, but he would not be able to spend it without coming to you all and the chairs.
Is it, I just don't know what that means.
I will get.
The only thing I would say is it is designed for teachers and educators. We just don't know how many specifics on that. And that would be, they'd have to bring that to you at the Joint Fiscal Committee before you authorize it.
It's designed for current teachers, not
yeah
students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for teachers.
Part of what we're doing here is some cleanup because we realized that we never really officially appropriated the ESSER 1, I guess, and some of the ESSER 2. We did appropriate that 3.5 or 6 in 315 for the fit up. So what this is doing is going back and cleaning up and officially appropriating this money. So we've got several things here, one of which is fulfilling our obligation to appropriate and doing that. But the second is recognizing that, and we had a meeting with the chairs of education to identify those areas of spending. And because of the plan, timing and so forth, it just didn't work relative to the to the schedule of the legislative session. So this is why it's set up. There's the review of the plan, which is going to the federal agency, but then there's the plan for the actual expenditure of the money that comes to joint fiscal. So it was a way of not holding it up, but fulfilling our responsibility to appropriate. Mary, do you have anything else you want to add to what's being proposed here? It sounds like there may be a little bit language tweak, but really it's one of, in concept, is this, we wanted to review it with committee members this morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Kitchell. This is, as you said, something that has been reviewed with both relevant committees on both of our sides, as well as the agency. And I think it is a good solution for our need to be in charge of appropriations and to assure that we are working in concert with the Agency of Education to meet the needs of that community with these monies. So I think it was a good solution to our both respective roles. Yeah.
Okay. Committee, any comments or questions other than Senator Sears' question? So it does mean that something's coming back to joint fiscal, but in light of scheduling and timing, this seemed to be the only vehicle or mechanism to move this money forward.
So I'm looking at my conferees, and if we were in committee to get, or at a table together, we would all lean back and whisper to each other. And unless I hear no, I think that we can accept this language. And I've already, our education expert is saying it's good with him. So we're good with this language and accept it.
Okay, all right. Well, I think this is just something that we've worked on mutually to address this. So it's really trying to make something official. So I'm glad we can accept that language, and it may, I guess Jen may need to do another run through.
Yeah.
The other area that we might want to come back to, unless there are any just sort of technical things that we want to clean up, Representative Hooper, I was going to move on to the justice pieces. And the way we had left it is that you would, as a package, you would agree with the additional spending for the judiciary, state's attorney, Center for Crime Victims, but you wanted to, you did not agree with our proposed decrease of 150 to the Defender General. So Senator Sears, you want to speak to that in terms of our concurrence?
Yes, we would concur with increasing the Defender General by 75,000 on the contracts and 75,000 on the ad hoc, which would give him slightly under $1 million over the base. In return, We would add 750 grand to the judiciary, 450,000 to the state's attorneys, and 150,000 to the network against sexual violence. And I think we've generally agreed on trying to help the Center for Crime Victim Services with the deficit from the lack of surcharges and fines, at least for FY21, leaving the, I believe that was our agreement.
Yes.
Well, we talked about it, and I think there was an agreement. Do you remember the amount that was
I think it was
requested?
400 and something thousand. I don't have the exact figure in mind.
Is that on our list?
I don't think it made, it came in after we had, both bodies had,
Let me see if I can do a search. I was thinking it was 345.
you may be right. You may be right, Representative Hooper. It was a 2-year number, and I thought we agreed to challenge the 1 year and then see where we're at.
Yeah, that was the thinking, and knowing that you were also going to look at the entire, at the justice system fees and understand how we ought to be addressing them in the future, fees, fines, penalties, et cetera.
So we'd be adding general fund for the lost revenues, and the amount we think is 345.
Yes,
I'll do a quick search.
Okay.
yeah, I'm doing the same. You can see me squinting at the computer. And I'm not finding it. Senator, maybe you be more efficient than I. Yeah. Okay, it has been confirmed that it is 345,000 in for FY21.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put that on our one-time general fund list, 345.
Yeah.
So that was the proposal anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think we had talked about it, and it's just a matter of making sure that, and I'm not sure that, we'll have to check with Stephanie. I'm not sure we've added that to our list.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're clear that the 150,000 to the Center for Crime Victims is for the network against sexual violence,
Mhm.
the 12 programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the network. Yeah, that's where there's been no increase since 2008.
Right.
Okay. Now, Senator Sears, do you want to offer the revised language on the study?
Yeah.
As our first step, because we realized that perhaps we needed to better understand and have some basic data development and information before we move to the next step. So I think we have, I don't know if Maria has it, the language around the replacement language we'd like to offer to what we had in the budget.
It'd be helpful if Maria has it. The basic need will be the judiciary needs to be added to those that would be available.
Okay, so I understand the language change. We can do that here in the office, or if you want to actually see it, I will make that change.
It'd be helpful to see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I will do that.
There was a concern on the part of Legislative Council that because it's mainly financial, that it would need to have a lot of help from joint fiscal, but that we need to include the judiciary in the discussion.
So the general concept is that JFO will do a brief on what the issues are.
Yeah.
They'll do an analysis, and that will be available to the legislature for consideration next year during the session for what actions we should take.
What action we should take. obviously the easiest road would be the most difficult for the appropriations committee. The easiest road would be to switch to general fund.
Yeah.
But because of the base general fund problems.
Yeah. So you are not proposing that we do that switch now, but instead JFO do the analysis, and then we will have, we'll be able to
A
consider
joint
it.
justice oversight would look at the analysis done by JFO and then perhaps make recommendations. But again, really the problem is diminishing revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, we thought would be perhaps a better approach. And we have talked obviously with joint fiscal about it. Do we, for the other committee members, do you have the document?
Could we put it up on the screen? Would that be possible? I've had the benefit of seeing it in advance, but I would like it if all of us could see it together.
Yeah.
But that may not.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
I think Maria's working on it. Maybe we could come back.
We could send a copy to Chrissy, or if Chrissy has it, you could, I guess, share it, Chrissy. I don't know. Do you have it?
While folks are looking for that, let me just to get us all and anybody who may be watching us onto the same page. The Senate proposed an analysis of all the fees, fines, penalties, and kind of associated ways of raising revenue within the justice system, knowing in particular, we've talked about the Center for Crime Victim Services as having seen a declining source of revenue because of important adjustments that have been made in the justice system. It was proposed that a task force of a large number of people be created to do this analysis. The House replied that perhaps the Joint Fiscal Committee, the Joint Justice Oversight Committee could do this. And then we were kind of together thinking about maybe Justice Reinvention too could think about it. But I believe the Senate's proposal now is that we could be briefed by JFO and take it up during the session next year.
Well,
That's
justice oversight would look at
Would-
whatever just
Yeah.
joint fiscal comes up with and try to make recommendations.
Yeah.
But again, without the Ways and Means and Appropriations Committees being represented, it's kind of hard, and Finance, I should add, on the Senate side. They need to be part of any decision.
Yeah.
so this would move it very much. It was an external. This is now saying we're keeping it within the legislative realm to do this work.
Yeah.
And that essentially what we're dealing here is a funding issue. And
is.
so I guess we don't have the document that we would with our proposed language. Sorry.
Yeah. That's understandable. So maybe it could be sent out to all of us. I've had a chance to review it and am comfortable with it, but send it out and, we
will.
list.
For anyone, the reason that we're having a little difficulty is Stephanie's not available until 12:30. So she would ordinarily be able to bring up some of these documents for us. And I'm sitting here with just my iPad, and I don't have my other computer that I would have at home. Okay, well, so what we'll move on, and hopefully we can agree on that study language. But at least at this point, we've closed out 202 through 220.
Thank you for your consideration of our request. We appreciate, I appreciate it. Thank you. So closing those.
Okay. Do you have others that we can go to?
Yes. So a small one, well, it's not a small, it's important, but B337, we've talked about this a couple of times. It's the Department of Corrections, the Community High School of Vermont. The House had proposed to fund, well, let's see.
2 years of ESSER.
This has to do with the use of ESSER. I was going back of the history in my mind. The governor proposed to fund this program out of the education fund. The House proposed to fund it out of ESSER. The Senate agreed that we should fund it out of ESSER, but reduced the number of years that we were going to fund it out of ESSER. And it has now become clear that we cannot fund it out of ESSER. And so we would propose going back to the funding it as it has been for a few years now out of the general fund. So our
For 1 year.
For 1 year. For 1 year, yes.
And so we're agreeing on the time, and we're agreeing that our plan to use ESSER based on additional information it's not a source that we can utilize. So we're funding it with general fund. So I think we're all in agreement that actually the Senate has taken historically the position that this is an education expense, the same as for any other eligible Vermonters, but that has not been persuasive on the House side. So we aren't going to continue that debate, and we'll close out those 337 and a B501. Okay.
B3 and B501.
Well, B501 said
yes,
remove.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Okay. And
the transportation folks are conferring. I think they're even discussing the clean water appropriations that went into that had to be reflected in the T-bill. So I don't know when we're going to get agreement, but hopefully they would agree with the clean water provisions, which aren't transportation funded. They're ARPA funded, but apparently they're having a lot of discussion on that. So those will have to stay open.
okay.
Any of the other 1101?
So much of that is dependent upon how all of the final pieces fall together.
Yeah.
So in terms of how we're moving money around, and so we can't close any of those yet.
No. If we when Stephanie comes back and we get through that spreadsheet, a whole lot of pieces will come together.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, so we've done that. The next area that perhaps we could go to, and forgive me if I'm jumping, but just by my notes, our healthcare committee has reviewed sections of the language in the bill, and on E227 and E227.1, they have sent us, and I have sent to you some proposed alternative language that is just modifying a bit of what you've done. So you need to have a chance to look at that, but I have sent that out to all of the conferees as well as staff. So that should be in your inbox. And let's see, going down this list of, our grayed out sheet at E300.2, which is the kind of the annual construct for how we deal with the ACO and their how their budget cycle works. We agree with your position and are okay to close E 300.2.
Okay, that's
we're
delivery system reform. That,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we're also good to close E 301.1. This is additional language around flexibility and global commitment. So we're good on those two.
Mary,
Yes, and
So,
you a couple, yeah.
thank you. Sorry, Representative Hooper, sorry. On Friday, I think, lose track of days, regarding sections E311.1 and 311.3, I sent language off. We offered language that you were going to be looking at, the primary care physician scholarship, and just and then the other one was the actual appropriation that we had in there. It shows grayed out, but it was you hadn't said yes or no, hopefully yes, yet. So I just didn't want to assume anything, and certainly wanted to make sure that it's grayed out instead of.
No, I understand that the House committee had the folks from AHAC and Office of Primary Care, and they took additional testimony. So. And I heard back, so those are grayed out, and we'll keep them grayed out.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, and going on, may I continue, Senator Kitchell?
Yes,
Just looking
sure.
further. Yeah. So in the G section, G500, with regard to broadband, we had proposed 150 million of spending authority for broadband. You had acknowledged the need, as I think we both sides have, that 150 million is the minimum necessary, that in fact it is going to take some more. But the really exciting thing is we are in striking distance of, in fact, making one of those transformative changes in Vermont with broadband becoming available to everyone. So we would propose that we go back to the commitment of at least 150 million on broadband. We know that was your intent, and it was more concern about just how to appropriately move the money out. But we would very much like to signal that this is necessary. We know that there will be additional we don't know that. We are deeply hopeful that there will be additional federal funds coming in for infrastructure and that broadband could be addressed there. But we would like to signal the intent to spend at least 150 million. And then broadly in that area also, it's come to our attention that the library system is still struggling with its internet connections, and we would propose adding $500,000 in general fund dollars to enable, I'm like calling it the library system isn't the correct way, but that we would allocate it to the department.
It's called Fiber Connect.
Fiber Connect, yeah. But and Senator Kitchell, I know you have looked into this, and I should stop talking and maybe let you describe it better than I.
Well, the library system, I remember when there was a philanthropic grant. I think it might have come from the Gates Foundation, but that technology is old. So there, after I think both of us put the budgets together, there was a request that came from the administration for 500,000 to, and I'm sure everybody's heard from their librarian, about that money. When the Finance Committee in the Senate was taking up H360, the broadband bill, they did not want to appropriate or carve out from that larger broadband appropriation funding for different projects. They thought that was not a direction that they wanted to take. So they considered it, but did not include it. And so there was a lot of email, just, and I don't know whether you got it, but it said Senate Appropriations took the money out, and we never took it out because it never was in there. Where it was in, I think, the administration's proposal. But it doesn't really lend itself to that larger broadband initiative. And actually, I, in light of the discussion in Senate Finance, I would agree that we need to take that 500,000 and deal with that need separately from our broadband agenda. It just perhaps makes it a little more cluttered. And if there are any librarians listening, maybe they'll be happy that we are, I think, Senate conferees, that we want to move that 500,000 to support our library infrastructure. Regarding the appropriation, we know that certainly what we were looking at was, what would realistically be spent in the first year. And, and that's why we were doing the 100 with the 50 of intent, but knowing that certainly we're going to need more. There may be an infrastructure bill coming, but I suppose the same argument could be used on the housing. So the concern raised is if we have entities out there planning and the development of the CUDs, is it better to have a specific amount appropriated rather than part of it done through intent? So I need to talk to my committee, but my general feeling is it was our intent to make broadband a priority. Last year with the CRF, we actually wanted to appropriate 100 million of that 1.25 billion. We hit a brick wall and couldn't do it. So I think that with the flexibility that this investment, even with the 150, it will not probably, we know it won't be sufficient. Hopefully there'll be an infrastructure bill that could help add to this, but if it gives greater certainty and support for planning, I see this as very consistent to say, let's just appropriate it and provide the certainty that the money's there. And if in fact, all of it can be spent in 22 to get us moving toward our goal, then more power. So Senator Westman and Senator Sears, Senator Westman's okay. All right. So we will go to we'll remove the statement of intent for the additional 50 million and just go to a straight appropriation and not muck at all with the 500,000 to libraries. Fund that separately.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Kitchell. Yeah. Let's see. I'm moving around based on where I wrote my initials next to page to things that we had to talk about. Right above that discussion with regard in the G section is G400. Friday, we had proposed increasing the investment for housing and homelessness by another $52 million in ARPA. And it is not grayed out. So I don't know if you've had a chance to consider that.
Oh, I thought we had agreed to that. And And I also thought we had agreed to the language VHCB had provided.
Okay, and then we received some tweaks to that language. And so I just want to make sure that the most updated language
Yeah.
is incurred.
Well, I thought we had accepted the language that we heard back from VHCB 2 places, one of which was here, and I thought we agreed to make those modifications, and that got into mixed housing and that
Right.
language.
Okay.
And the more recent one tied to the 50,000 that we had moved into VHCB Ag Viability Program. And there was, we received a request to make some modest language changes around that 50,000. So I think what was being asked helped clarify. I don't have a problem. But the first thing is you would have to concur with the 50,000 before we ever get to the language.
Yeah. And Kimberly, can you help me with this?
Sure. Yep. So as Senator Kitchell said over the weekend, there was clarifying language in that C100A4. And this came via email on Sunday, May 16th, 4:20, if you're looking for it in your inbox. And as has been said, this was 50,000 for technical assistance through VHCB for farmers that are applying for grants. And it's just an adjustment in terms of evolving ARPA guidance. And we would be happy to agree to both the amount of 50,000 as well as the clarifying language.
Okay.
And then
So that takes care of the 50,000 and we'll update the language. So that's good.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you want to also talk about the language in C11A1.
C11.
A1, it's the contingent revenue.
I'm not sure if we're ready to do that yet.
Okay.
I did want to, another thing that we talked about, I think Friday, and this gets onto the last page, in the E 106. That is the 2 positions that we talked about. They would be limited service. And I did talk to, at the Friday meeting at the Joint Legislative Management Committee. I realized that because they're limited service, they didn't have to be approved by the Oversight Committee, but felt as a courtesy, we should bring the request to their attention. And that committee was supportive of those 2 requested limited service positions, which would be 126 and 128.1. And obviously we know we have modifications to the State House and a lot of work to be done to come back. So we had left it on Friday that I would raise that or appraise the management committee, of which I'm a member, of that request, and it's supported.
Okay.
So we close those out?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Do you want to 321, which maybe Stephanie's not here, but what happened by mistake, we moved the money that OEO gives out for shelter grants back into GA, and the Agency of Human Services had requested that the money, this 6.2 million, go back to OEO because they administer this money for the shelters.
I don't want to catch our specialist in this area unawares. It seemed like a pretty straightforward when we talked about this earlier in the day. Representative Jessup, do you have any questions about that?
Right. Senator Kitchell, did you just say E323?
E321
Okay.
and 325. And what was getting conflated here, obviously, and they, the agency understands that this has nothing to do with the transfer of their proposal to move so much emergency housing out to the communities and community action agencies. What this money is the money administered by OEO traditionally to go out to for grants for the shelters. And so all they're saying is please put the money back where it belongs in OEO, because they're the ones who make the payments out for these services.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, right. The HOP grants, it's about 6.2 million, I think.
Yeah, and that's what's being moved, 6.218.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah,
So-
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
And-
would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just putting the money back to OEO so they can make those grants. So we
Right.
can close out those two sections. The next one is at ESSER statewide, and we've taken care of that. And then I wanted to give out the language on fees, but I don't think anybody has it other than me, which isn't much help.
So you'll email that to us. It'll be emailed to us and we can look
Okay.
at it when we meet again.
All right, so the other language, and Senator Steve Klein, I don't know if you have it, but there's been a lot of discussion around the testing for PCB.
Yeah,
The
Teresa can
language
share it if
is
she wants.
very clear that it says the funding, and it's 4.5 million that was there for testing, $500,000 to go to the health department. And it said to complete testing, and it raised the question, well, what does complete mean? And then a discussion around, well, are we talking about mandatory testing? And so what we're going to propose, and hopefully, and I don't know
We can share
whether,
it. Teresa, maybe you could put it up if you have it.
and I don't know whether this has been shared with your education committee folk. But it is language that would make it clear, at least for the first year, we're not making it mandatory. We would take that experience and then decide what we want to do after that. There's limitations in terms of the testing capacity. And also the Commissioner of Environmental Conservation wanted to make it clear the buildings that would be subject to testing. So because after 1980, you don't need to test. It would be, you wouldn't want to require something that, or be testing for something that, and spend money unnecessarily. So what this is doing is making it clear that we're talking about testing in buildings that were constructed or renovated before 1980. That was the time break off that was given to us by the commissioner, and should be completed. There was a desire to have an end date on it, and with the first year would be voluntary, and then based on that experience, we would see what further action needed to be taken with the benefit of that experience. So this is what we would like to offer as additional language in light of the discussions that have emerged after the passage of the budget.
Okay, thank you. And did you say that our education committees had taken a look at this?
No, I said I wasn't sure. We have shared it. It came out of Senate Education as a question or a concern. There was a desire not to move to a mandatory kind of response and clarify that for the first year, and then decide what should be done with the benefit of that experience. But the language in the section, which was what was given to us by the administration, talked about completion of the PCB testing, but it was silent in terms of mandatory, voluntary, time frame, et cetera.
Yeah.
So this is what this language is attempting to do. So I think you probably need to
We need to run it by
confirm
our
it,
committee.
yeah, with
Yeah.
your committee.
So if I can do a little delegation, Peter, will you make sure that this is, Representative Fagan, will you please make sure this is run by our Ed Committee Chair? And if whoever has that amendment could email it to Rep Fagan so that he can forward it on to our Ed Committee, that would be great.
I think Teresa sent it to him.
Okay.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that's the same date as the radon testing is due, by the way, June of 2023.
Okay.
I don't know. They're very different processes, so we didn't coordinate the dates. But we could.
Oh, it just happened that way. The big problem, what we've been told, and Steve Klein probably knows more than I do, that the testing for PCBs, there's very limited testing capacity, and this is going to be a multi-year, hopefully not as long as the common chart of accounts.
I can laugh about that, but I know other people are crying about how long that has taken to get done. It's very discouraging.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's been a very long, do you, okay.
So we've offered you some language on a healthcare study, and you had proposed a particular healthcare study, and we have offered some language back at E126.2. That's been emailed out, but I'll double check that it's gone to everybody. And associated with that, we're also having a conversation about how to be engaging Vermonters around the, so we're appropriating a good deal of the ARPA money in this budget, but we're also having a conversation about whether or not, how to engage Vermonters in the expenditure of the remaining ARPA money. So we are looking at some language around that. It's still being developed, but so I don't have anything to offer you on that at the time being, but hope to come to you soon on that. I has to be soon, because we're going home someday.
Yeah, just to expand a little bit on that, it was suggested that this, what is in 126.2, which is really focusing on healthcare, and there have been a number of comments about how we get information, and a lot of groups are out there, certainly, willing to funnel information back to us. But this really, what the rewrite will do is sort of say, if the legislature is going to go out and solicit public input, then let's try to do it in a way that gives us a connection to communities around not only the healthcare piece, but also investments with ARPA, or if we have additional money, certainly it could help inform those discussions as well. So and obviously this was something that was initiated by our pro tem, and so we have had some discussion about how we can make this perhaps a little broader in its work and collection. And so the language that we're going to get is reflective of, look, if the legislature is going out, let us hear directly and have the benefit of that information. So we look forward to seeing if we can get something that's mutually acceptable on what that effort would look like.
Yeah, thank you. So we need to get this done. The proposal on the Senate budget was an excellent one, and we're just trying to expand upon an excellent idea. And so, you know, we are, let's see, Rep. Fagan, I think you had, yeah, we've confirmed that the correct, your language was okay. Do you have anything else?
I do have the AVIC language that we discussed yesterday. If you want to do that, or if you want to
Okay.
hold overall,
I'm not remembering. Is it ready to go?
it is.
Then let's get it out there.
Teresa, if you would send it along, please.
Oh, is this to deal with, so that we're making sure that they're licensed, accredited, and that was the Susan Stitley request?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
checked with my House Ed chair, and she is fine. It goes from 11 to 12 colleges. They've had a cartoon studies center in White River recently, and it states, instead of just accredited, it says must be accredited or certified in Vermont, because I think the cartoon place is certified and not, and that's it. So that's what it does. I also did check, they will use the same apparatus to be able to allocate the funds as they did with the $10 million that we have already given them. They will work, the intent being to keep the smaller institutions.
Representative Fagan.
Yes, ma'am.
10 million, we have given, we know you want to discuss it, but right now you haven't given anything.
Well, that is true. That is true. I'm just explaining what we got here, and then I'll leave it up to my chair to decide if she wants to add in something into it.
I know. So we put in 10 and we'll raise you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna go to 20? I'd love to get 20 to the independent colleges.
Bump it to 20.
We'll split the difference, Senator Sears. 15.
15.
Sounds good.
They would be thrilled with that. I did talk to Susan this morning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So nice bit of negotiation, Senate. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Yeah.
Your proposal to put 10 million to the independent colleges was very important. Thank you for thinking of that and also agreeing to increase it. These are important institutions in our communities. They are important employers. They are important in terms of higher education, and they attract and retain young people in our state. I think that they are fabulous, along with all of our higher ed. They are an important economic development tool, and they have absolutely seen harm during the pandemic, and we need to make sure, to the best that we are able, that they are healthy and viable. And so I am so pleased that the Senate recognized and offered the original 10 and is willing to increase it to 15 million to support their work.
Well, I think no one understands it any more than Senator Sears, the impact. And, you know, so much of what we talk about is, doesn't seem to, based on the testimony that we got from Tom Cavet about the importance of the higher education sector of the Vermont economy. And we don't tend to really, I think it doesn't fall neatly within, say, the ACCD wheelhouse, but as it relates to employment, as it relates to what it means to communities, if one of them is lost, as Bennington County and Rutland County, it has a very significant impact. And so I think we just are, all of us, on record saying these are businesses and they're just as valuable as any other business. They just happen to be in the business of higher education. So we, I think, have historically, the legislature's really been the one to take the lead to say, let's support them because they are an important business. And for all the reasons that you've cited, and the testimony we got from Tom Cavet was just so powerful about what the return is. And sometimes I get a little, suspicious about some of the returns that we hear. But, because they're being advanced by the entity, selling the project. But when you hear the legislative economists talk about at least a 3-to-1 return and the impact it has on the youth and why Vermont, although we talk about our demographics, actually the number of people that we have under age 24 proportionally is very high, and that's because of these institutions. So I think then we can say, gee, we're happy we could recognize that part of the economy, and hopefully they will get stabilized, because they're just as important as so many of the other businesses that seem to be we're hearing from.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll agree to the language that was requested as a result of the email that we all received from about the program or the in White River.
Okay.
Other comments or other pieces that people have got that we need to, that we can clean up?
Yeah, Rep. Fagan has some additional cleanup language on Vermont State Colleges.
So thank you, Rep. Hooper. Teresa, if you would send that, please. This is in regard. Is this
the language to replace the benchmark and just get into?
No, that's all done. This is just a few cleanup things and a couple of proposals. It's 3 pieces actually in one language section. It's G300 workforce investments. It falls under the $12.4 million that you've allocated to the colleges for programs where they teach it. And as I like to term it, they help to unbury themselves. So that's a very good thing while helping Vermonters. What is in sub 5 first is that the funds, and I was talking to the Vermont State Colleges earlier this morning, their concern is that they're not sure they'll be able to expend all of the scholarship money in this FY22, and they have asked if it can be carried forwarded now, so that there is some surety going forward that those funds will remain, and it'll help to the longevity of the students, things along those lines. So you can see under sub 5, it says which shall carry over to future fiscal years until expended.
Let me ask, Stephanie has told us some of that carry forward language we really don't need, that in fact comes with the, so Steve, do you have do you want to speak to that issue around carry forward?
I think we have general carry forward language, but we will have to check that. I think as we draft the, I think to the extent these are ARPA funds, there's general language. We could, given that they're an independent institution, let me talk to Stephanie. I think we might want to put the language in, but I want to check with her, and she may have a different philosophy on that.
Yeah, because I think in so many of these areas, we know that, for example, on the broadband. I think
the ARPA will have general language. I'm just thinking if it becomes general fund, then do we need to have some sort of language? And
I'm not opposed. It's just, I remember comment being made that it's sort of gratuitous language, but let's double check that.
Yeah,
certainly it makes sense, Senator Shears. We don't want to have to get into a habit of having to put that everywhere in every section of the budget because it's not there. So I absolutely agree. And then the next thing is that we have deleted the carve out reference to EMS. It's not because EMS is not important. We absolutely agree it's important. They are running that program. They don't believe that they can expend all $1 million in this year. They believe they can manage 500,000. It goes to capacity and number of students that are actually coming to the door. They just want to have the flexibility such that if you have students in another area that are really interested, but we're out of money, and there's $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 sitting here waiting for EMS that may not be used, that money is used for those other students that are waiting at the door.
Well, I'll have to check that, because we got a request, and it was sent to us by our Government Operations Committee, and it came from the EMS Association talking about what they needed for training. And it was in a variety of areas. One thing that I found very interesting is I just was talking to our director of our Career and Tech Ed Center at Riverbend, and they have an EMT program. And I know that from the association, their feedback was that the one that is through the state college system, and it probably is more robust, I'm not sure, it is very expensive. And so we had a lot of back and forth with the president of VTC about the cost of the program. So this was a priority, and this has been something our Senate GovOps committee has spent a lot of time in, and that is the plight of this part of our emergency response system. And the fact that that they need the training, and they need also, I think, training of instructors. So they don't want the carve out at all. Is that what you're saying?
That's our request, is that we would prefer there not to be a carve out. If there were to be a carve out, the colleges are saying they know they could handle $500,000. More than that is very problematic. They just don't have the capacity. They would actually have to build capacity, which probably costs a lot more money than the $500,000. So
there is no doubt in our mind about the importance of this sector and our desire to support them. The concern is the ability to provide the service, and that my recollection is that this carve out represents what, 20% of the funds that we were allocating in that area. And it would be a shame to tie up those funds if they're not able to be provided when other equally important priority areas would not be able to provide the educational services.
All right, well, I'll double check. Certainly, I mean, obviously we've done a lot of direct recognition of workforce needs, whether it's primary care or nurses or we're finally releasing the money for the mental health, and we've got apprenticeships. We've got a whole host of areas that we've tried to address workforce issues. So I'll have to talk to our chair of GovOps around that. I don't know. It makes me wonder if we do have some ability to look to our CTE programs for this kind of training. I know they're doing CDL courses, yeah. So maybe we shouldn't be looking just to the state college system to help us with this training.
Yeah,
And I do have one more.
Well, but if I may, before we move off of this, as we have been looking at these workforce development education and our desire to also support the economic development role of higher education in our communities, a comment that I've heard several times is that higher education and generally workforce development and training is kind of falls into the Bermuda Triangle of our various committees. It's not really in education, it's not really in commerce, and it's not, and it seems that appropriations is the one that keeps coming back and saying, hey, we need to attend to this. And I would suggest that we can't solve this problem right now, how apprenticeship works, how the CTEs work, what's their relationship with the system of education. But we can't solve it this week, but boy, we need to attend to this. This is vital to our future. And
we've had a workforce investment board and councils for a couple of decades, and we're still where we are. Okay, well, let me, do you want to speak to the, what we put in for dental?
Dental, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure, Peter, and then do your other one too.
Thank you. So the dental is great. So thank you very much. We really do appreciate that. It's certainly something that is something that we all use all the time. So it would be very good if we actually had practitioners to be able to help us use it. So thank you. And then we will accept that if I didn't formally say that. But then the final piece is there was internships in there for master's and baccalaureate students, and those were removed, and we understand why. But you'll see at the very bottom of the list that the scholarship funds. This is something, again, I was talking to the Vermont State Colleges this morning and asked how about a different approach in doing it this way, and they thought that would be doable, and they really thought it would be great to do it that way. Is that funds for those scholarship funds may also be used for the 2 masters, both in education and in mental health counseling, but the 5 are listed there that had
I'm
been.
sorry, what section are you in?
I'm still on that section that I still on the document we just emailed you. So it's G300 and it's sub A5D. This is $5 million for the tuition for the critical occupation list. And in that list, in the critical occupation list of $20.5 million, there had originally been internship money for scholarship money for internships for master's level practitioners in education and mental health. So that was deleted from the budget. And our proposal here is to instead include the master's level clinicians, who are those individuals that are going for their masters under education and mental health, to be able to take part in the scholarship programs as well.
So you're in.
So it's again G300, A, 5,
Just
D.
a second.
Yep.
I'm looking here. G 300
A,
A.
5,
Wait a minute, little a.
little a,
Uh-huh.
sub 5, which is the 12.4 million.
I'm having a hard time finding it here.
That's okay. Let's see here.
All right, I've got the 12.4, yeah.
Okay, the
and
12.4, good. So under that is sub D is in Delta.
Uh-huh,
That's $5 million.
yeah, okay.
So within that, so as part of the original,
So that's the same section, you want to get rid of the EMS allocation, or at least reduce it to 500.
correct,
And you want to expand that 5 million could be used for masters in education and mental health?
correct. Allowable uses would also may be used to pay for tuition for masters in ed, masters in educational leadership, masters advanced grant or school psychology, masters in counseling, and masters in mental health counseling. So it's really within 2 tracks, education and mental health, but broken out in the 5 specifically stated master's programs. And again, Teresa just emailed you this proposed amendment.
Okay, well, we need to talk about that. I don't know what that does.
Yep, and again, I did talk to Sophie and her team this morning, and they do agree with this approach.
Is this their recommendation, or is this yours and you're asking them to sign on?
I asked if this would be a good compromise, and they thought it would be.
All right. And the reason I'm asking is we are just releasing 5 million for mental health, for education and scholarships. In our child care bill, there's a lot of money there as well with early child development and training. So my question is, why did you select these particular areas? Is there because of a particular express need over and above what we've already done? Or is this, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of because I think this was part of their original proposal, and then we made some adjustments because we wanted to, well, frankly, this was how we found some of the money to support independent colleges.
Right. So as you know, the original proposal included scholarships for internship and allowing these individuals to get paid because they typically do not receive pay for the internship work that they are doing while they're going to school to get the master's. This would help to pay for the master's in lieu of paying them to go to work during the internship. So that's the thinking here.
Okay.
Sorry, Rep. Hooper, go ahead, please.
These are just not highly lucrative areas. And so looking for a way to underwrite the costs so that this is a workforce development need that we all know needs to be attended to. We're all deeply concerned about the consequence of to our communities as we grow out of the pandemic in terms of the mental health. We know people are in trouble, and we're trying to make sure the workforce is there and trying to support them. I know that we have been supportive in other parts of the budget, but I think this is all in recognition of the really significant issues that are coming down the road toward us.
So I guess the question is, the more you open it up and you got $5 million, are you basically, I mean,
so if I may,
in other words, if you brighten it up, in other words, everything, if you open up more occupations, then the extent to which you're diluting the ability to address the ones that came to the top and the most critical. I guess that's what I'm wondering. Is this being driven because they think the $5 million for the last dollar tuition, this is for 1 year undergraduate, and then funds may be used only after federal and state financial aid. So if there's other funding programs, do you, if you have, in other words, is there a sequence of where this money would be available so that to the extent money's available, would you put these master's programs ahead of the ones that were already identified as critical occupations? I guess is my question.
And that's a very good question, Senator. I would recommend that we leave the baccalaureate programs first and then follow with the master's level programs. It would be really nice if in January we're back here and saying this was so well subscribed, and it's such a all the different programs that are offered here are being so explored by Vermonters that we need to do additional funding because we have Vermonters that can step up and improve themselves. So it'd be great to be there. I just want to make sure that we are addressing our critical needs. But again, yes, to answer your question directly, baccalaureate first and then the master's level second.
Okay. All right. Because I certainly, if you look, practical nursing and nursing, the need for that is so extraordinary. From the task force. I don't mean to diminish those master's level, but I'm just saying when you're sitting here with a identified shortage of several thousand nurses because of retirement, and $5 million, although $5 million is certainly not inconsequential, but it's still a limited pot of money.
Senator, you are so correct in all those things you just said.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at the language. I'm not at a computer, so I can look at it. But,
gotcha. Didn't know that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I heard that earlier, and then it just dawned on me. That's right. You only have the one screen, and you have to be looking at us.
Yeah, that's all I've got is my little iPad here. Okay.
So
Well, it's, I don't know if people want to take a break or shall we keep going? It's 12:23. Do you have other, maybe if, unless we've got some other things that Representative Fagan has?
I'm looking through our lists and, we are waiting for a couple of conference committees. And we have large area of economic development. You mentioned AOT, the transportation committees were meeting. I know Senator Westman is just now able to be looking at the energy and weatherization kind of pieces we had suggested.
I do have a couple of
That's right. You had a
questions for you on that. And when it's appropriate, and the next time we meet, I think we can have a package back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Shall we break for lunch? And I mean, obviously, Stephanie is going to come back, and some of that money will certainly close out some sections, but we can't do that without her.
okay.
So are there other pieces right now, Representative Hooper, that you have, or?
No, there are not. And I'm just thinking, so the House Appropriations Committee is meeting at 3:45 today, and I feel like I have a 1 o'clock meeting. No, I have a 2:30 to 3 o'clock meeting. But maybe that.
So you're available between 3 and 3:45?
That's kind of pitiful, isn't it? I'm looking at Teresa thinking maybe she can tell me.
So House Appropriations is meeting at 3:30. I don't know what your other meeting is.
Okay, 3:30.
Can we come back if Stephanie's available? Can we come back at 2?
Let's do that. Or 2:30. It looks like
well, you said.
Let's do 2. Let's do 2. If she can do it, that would be great.
I thought you. Okay.
Did. I did.
You did say you had something at 2:30, so.
Yes, I did. And then I was thinking I could get out of it, but I just looked at it and I can't get out of it. So if we can do 2 o'clock and be efficient, that would be terrific.
All right. Well, hopefully Stephanie will be back and we can go through some of the money here. Maybe we can get the language on the fee and surcharge study that have talked about, so people can at least see it. And why don't we take a break then between now and 2? Senator Westman, you need to have time to confer.
I have a couple of questions to ask Mary for clarification in what she pushed across. And then we're doing a side-by-side document, and we'll have something at 2 o'clock.
Okay. All right. So do you want to talk to her one-on-one and we can adjourn this so people can get some lunch?
That would be fine.
Okay.
It shouldn't take very long.
All right. So what I'm going to do is adjourn this meeting, and then we'll reconvene at 2. People have a chance to maybe get a bite to eat and get some other and some other things clarified. Okay. So Teresa, we can go